Welcome to the STEM Pathways podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of science, technology, engineering, and math. I'm your host, Rohan Sharma, a passionate explorer of all things STEM. Each episode, we bring you captivating stories, cutting-edge research, and inspiring interviews with experts and enthusiasts who are pushing the boundaries of innovation. Whether you're a student, a professional, or just curious about how the world works, join us as we unlock the mysteries of the universe and explore the endless possibilities of STEM. Let's get started. Today, I'll be interviewing Favour Nerrise, who is currently working on her Ph.D. in electrical engineering from Stanford University. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Rohan. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. So to get started, I wanted to ask what made you choose your major for your bachelor's?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I had loved STEM ever since I was growing up. Originally, I wanted to be a doctor. So I was always interested in medicine, but at the same time, I was always really, really good at STEM classes, math, science. And then as I sort of like went through middle and high school, I got more involved in the competitive side of STEM. So I was doing like robotics competitions and like math competitions. I mean, literally everything. We were going on TV for Science Bowl. It was just a wild ride. And so I sort of had this question to ask myself when I was applying to colleges, which was, I know I love medicine. I know I want to do something related to medicine still, but is there a way to combine that with my love for fixing things and building things? And ultimately, engineering is a discipline that allows you to do both of those things. And so I sort of pursued in college classes that allowed me to learn more about medicine, taking some pre-med classes, some neuroscience courses, as well as then also being able to take computational and also just fundamental engineering based classes that help me develop a mindset for solving problems.
Yeah. So during your bachelor's, I saw that you've done some internships. What were those about?
Yeah, so I did a variety of internships. So the summer actually before my freshman year of college, I started doing internships. I was in Seattle for the summer, working with a company called Concur. It had been recently acquired by SAP at the time. And so yeah, I was sort of 16 and out there across the country for my parents and family and interning. So I got to get a pretty good head start what the internship field sort of felt like. And my responsibilities, they were very, very different from anything I did today, but some of those skills I still take into play. At that time, I was more so focused on fundamental software engineering. So I was building microservice tools to better enable the company to basically do processes faster, seeing as they've been recently acquired and they don't want to work with these massive big applications anymore. And then throughout college, I also just interned with a bunch of other companies. And again, I switched around doing traditional SWE type roles. I switched then eventually more so towards AI type internships as well, towards the end of my college career. And ultimately, that ended up informing a lot of the research that I'm doing now in my PhD, which was sort of that data science, AI driven research, and applying it to some useful domain that can do.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little more specifically about what you're researching then right now?
Yeah, sure. So my PhD is at a beautiful intersection of both engineering and medicine, again, to no surprise. So I'm particularly doing research that's focused on the brain and better understanding the brain. More specifically, what we try to do is we try to discover these things called digital biomarkers, which are basically ways to predict a health outcome in a person. And the digital biomarkers that we're interested in are ones that can basically sort of predict any sort of like motor imbalance or motor impairment that happens when somebody has a particular type of brain disorder. For example, individuals who have Parkinson's, Alzheimer's tend to exhibit pretty severe motor impairment, such as tremors, their posture, their gait or walking pattern, their balance, their speed. And so we use a bunch of AI for things such as computer vision. So like literally using a camera, we can detect in real time if, there is some imbalance with your movement. And we combine that with techniques from learning about brain images. So we do basically physics-based informed learning using sort of different types of ML models, machine learning models. And we combine those insights together to basically propose if you pay attention to these specific joints in the body, and if you pay attention to these specific regions of your brain, you can then have more confidence in predicting that maybe here's how much deterioration could occur in somebody with this stage of this disease. So it's very, very complicated. Again, but it's what I've wanted to do my whole life. I've always wanted to work in medicine. So I'm glad that I really get to do both the things that I love in engineering and medicine.
Yeah. So is the stuff you're researching right now already being used anywhere? Or are you kind of on the leading edge of it?
leading edge is a word. I don't know that I would consider myself leading edge per se, but I think I'm one of many who hope to be at the leading edge. But no, it's not implemented anywhere. There are digital biomarkers that already have been approved by the FDA. So when you do medical technology research, it's one of the hardest areas to work in because you can't just deploy your technology and just have everybody using it, especially if you want it to be used clinically in the hospital or in organizations like that. So you need to go through the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, to approve the technology. And that is a very expensive and very time intensive process. It can take up to years to get that approval, not even to mention getting your patents approved before you can go through that step. So through my PhD, there is no possible way I could do all of that research and get the patents and go through FDA approval and get this deployed clinically. There's just not enough time. However, that being said, my hope is that we at least push forward the research. And then on the consumer side, there's a faster pipeline, right? So if we can go through FDA approval to get these technologies adopted clinically, then we can maybe optimize for coming up with consumer-based products that anybody at home can purchase and have some trust in. And those typically, to some degree, don't require the super extensive FDA approval process. So there's a variety of ways that this could go, but my hope is to go either way at some point.
Yeah. So right now, I'm guessing you're kind of in like the middle stage of your PhD. Can you talk about how a PhD evolves from your first year up until your fifth or sixth year?
Yeah, no, it changes a lot. So I'm going into my fourth year coming up this upcoming academic year, and I literally just can't believe it. I was one of the COVID affectees. I was a junior when COVID hit. So I literally blinked and now I'm almost done with my PhD. So it does not feel real at all. And so many things change with your PhD. My first year, and it differs a lot also by institution and by program. At Stanford, specifically for electrical engineering, you spend your first year typically rotating in labs. So they encourage you to like do research with at least 2 to 3 different types of professors in their labs. And that way you get a flavor for what type of mentor you want, what type of research you're interested in, what type of skills, how does that pair well with your classes? So that was like very, very different to my experience now, where I've completed doing my classes. I had a student that I was mentoring, an undergraduate that I mentored this summer. I mentored another undergraduate last year. So yeah, it's very, very different. But right now, I pretty much drive so much of my research in collaboration with my advisor and my collaborators. And it feels like I'm almost like at that stage of doing like my own mini lab in a way. So yeah, it's fascinating and I absolutely love it. It's been great.
Yeah. So what are your current plans for after your PhD?
Yeah, nothing set in stone, honestly. I think the beauty about a PhD program, especially one like mine, is you could literally do anything. So I am not closing down to the door to any one path. And I would encourage anybody who's doing and considering a PhD, if you thought you only can be a professor to do a PhD, that's not true. You can do whatever you want. I know many colleagues who have founded companies, some who have gone to industry science research roles, some who have completely pivoted. So yeah, I'm considering a bunch of options right now, both in academia, outside of academia. I'm open to what happens. So we'll see in a couple of years.
Yeah. So for my last question, I wanted to ask if you had one piece of advice to give someone who's still in high school, wanting to go down a similar career path as you, what would you say?
Yeah, I would say explore everything. I think I know the pressure right now for a lot of high school students is very, very intense. Honestly, sometimes I can't believe it. I see profiles from high school students applying to just, colleges. And I mean, students feel like they have to have been the most perfect student on planet Earth to go to college. And it's just so unfortunate because that's not what college should be for. I would say explore every single thing. I did everything. I still do. And people are always telling me, like, I can't believe you do this, you do this. I worked for NASA, I worked for a hospital, I worked for the FDA. Do whatever you want, honestly. I think at some point in life, you will have to specialize. And I think it's perfectly fine if that comes on later in life. I think when you're in high school, if you want to be in STEM, you don't have to just be in robotics clubs, right? Or just the engineering based organizations or every extracurricular you have lead exactly to that. I did cheerleading. I did gymnastics competitively for 13 years. I was all over the place. I just did what I liked. And I was really, really good, especially the things I liked because I liked them. So I wanted to be the best at the things that I liked. And I think that like just showed through no matter what. And I did the exact same thing in college. I'm doing the exact same thing in my PhD, and it's been working out pretty amazingly. So I would really encourage more high school students to just like embrace all your diverse interests and don't feel like you have to narrow down and become this super professional by high school. You have so much more time. Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.